Welcome to Fixable, a podcast from TED. I'm your host, Ann Morris. I'm a company builder and leadership coach.
And I'm your co-host, Frances Fry. I'm a Harvard Business School professor, and I'm Ann's wife.
Today, we are very excited to share another edition of Unsolicited Advice with you. These are episodes where we give advice to people who definitely didn't ask us for it. In the past, we've given unsolicited advice to companies like Amazon and Boeing, job seekers in a tough job market, and even to the Democratic Party.
And who gets the gift of our largesse today, Anne?
Frances, that is really the question. Today's winner is an organization you have been thinking a lot about over the last few weeks, the WNBA.
Last few weeks, last few years, last few decades. Yes.
Yes, this organization has taken up a lot of space in your heart and in your mind, and I'm excited to really get into this conversation with you today.
I literally can't wait.
All right. So, Coach Frances is in the house with us today. I think longtime listeners will know that one of your earliest professional aspirations was to coach basketball after playing it in college and falling in love with this sport at a very early age. A lot has been going on in this league, particularly in the last few weeks. Frances, what just happened which has inspired us to have this conversation today?
Well, screenwriters would call it the inciting incident. And the inciting incident was the exit interview, which is the last interview after you've lost your last game, was the exit interview of Napheesa Collier. And she unloaded, she unburdened herself of all of her views of leadership. And so it was an explosive interview that really took to task the WNBA leadership and specifically the commissioner of the WNBA.
Cathy Engelbert.
Yes.
And Napheesa has a special role. She is at the very top of the list of fantastic players. You know,
very top of the list. She's also one of the small group of players that is negotiating for the collective bargaining agreement.
She's the de facto voice of the players right now.
She's the person who took the microphone. And it is fair to say the world listened. But I would say officiating is probably the tip of the spear in terms, but it's, I think, also just emblematic of a larger problem.
And what is that larger problem?
That leadership does not take the concerns of the players, that management does not take the concerns of the employees, for the rest of us, nearly as seriously as it needs to.
If officiating is the tip of the spear, what else are you seeing?
So, number one, the officiating. So the officials, everything goes up to the commissioner. And it's not like people were not complaining about the officiating. It was the number one issue last year with Caitlin Clark. And then at the beginning of this year, she went out on injuries after being brutalized. And then so did many of her teammates. And then so did other players. And every single time it was brought up to her, Cathy, the Engelbert, the commissioner, she was like playfully dismissive. Oh, I only ever hear losers complain about officiating. Or she would say, we're going to take a look at that. And so there was dismissiveness and a lack of transparency each time it was brought up.
As in a breakdown between management and employee, like the framework you've offered here.
Yeah. The backdrop of the collective bargaining agreement, which is basketball sports are unionized. Mm-hmm. And so which means you negotiate a deal. It's called the collective bargaining agreement. It's the agreement for all players. And then that stays in place for many years. So you only get to renegotiate your pay and the terms of any quality of life things every N years. And that the current collective bargaining agreement expires on October 31st of this year. Mm-hmm. And what I would say, the backdrop is that because of the explosion in everything, much due to Caitlin Clark, much due not to Caitlin Clark, but there is much explosion of the economics and the viewership and the excitement. So this is in many ways a classic story of a sleepy industry that got onto a rocket ship of growth, due in part to some of the things it had done, but in much larger part out of luck. And now that the league is moving really quickly, it may well have outpaced the capacity of some of the people that had been there before. And we see this in organization after organization. Individuals don't necessarily evolve at the same pace of the external context. And that means whenever you get a suddenly bigger pie, the stakes become really high. And that's what has happened here. There is fighting over who should get which portion of this bursting pie. So that's one issue, is value creation and value capture, which is always an issue, but is particularly an issue when things explode.
And the distribution here, the main point of friction is between the league and kind of people with an ownership stake in the league, owners, equity holders, and then the players.
That's exactly right.
Which brings us to this conversation. Where does this league go from here? So, Frances, let's start with the officiating issue. The thing that confuses me as maybe an armchair fan is that this problem has been flagged again and again by lots of different stakeholders, coaches, players, fans. This is a huge conversation on WNBA Twitter, and yet there has been no meaningful response to it. So what's going on and how do you fix that? And I'm not the same level of fan that you are. I love watching these games, and I love watching you watch these games. But what does that mean? Translate that for me a little bit. Like I'm allowed to push people around on the court in a way that I'm
literally
not.
You're allowed to touch people in a way you're not. So hand checking. If I'm dribbling the ball and you're defending me, in college, you're not allowed to touch me. You would like that, Ann Morris. Your dance space, my dance space.
I like sports. I like sports with nets between me and the other player.
Right.
I didn't go anywhere near basketball.
Yeah. It's been true for decades, but it didn't get out of hand and the out of hand started last year, but this year what really got out of hand is players were getting injured as a result of all of this escalating physicality.
Including star players,
yes,
particularly Caitlin Clark, who were part of the explosion of excitement around this league.
Yes, so many people who came to the league excited to see the gorgeousness and the artfulness ended up seeing like a street brawl, and then their beloved players injured.
Right.
Chaos ensued.
we get to the playoffs, which are happening right now, and some of the league's best players, Napheesa Collier, Caitlin Clark, they're on the sidelines, unable to play when the spotlight should be brightest.
Yes, they and many more are on. And if you look at how the injuries occurred, you can't help but think it was all avoidable.
Okay. So, Frances, what's been the response to Napheesa's calling out the commissioner and to this critique at the end of the season, which we heard from a lot of different corners?
Yeah. So every time anyone has complained about the officiating, the response has been silence or dismissiveness. Every single time. There has never been an action with it.
Besides the fines. For daring to
for
speak.
The fines. And those have been pretty sure and pretty certain when the fines come. That's the only response that has happened.
Publicly, just to be fair, that we have that we know about in the public domain.
That's all we know.
Yeah.
The response to Napheesa, there was a statement put out by the commissioner that didn't deny anything that was said, but said that she was disheartened to hear it, and she will continue to work with all the fibers of her being to make the league better. So it was nothing specific. It was vague, and more of the same.
Certainly was not an apology, much less a good apology.
No evidence of an apology. And so then no evidence of and if the reason we need a good apology is you have to repair. If you repair a relationship, you can actually have more trust than than what you started with. But if you don't attempt to repair a relationship, oh my gosh, the pace at which it unravels just accelerates.
What do you do going forward if you're the league to signal, we hear you, we're going to take this seriously?
Well, like everything, when you want to repair a relationship, you should begin with an apology. Because it just tells people that they're no longer being gaslit, that you're no longer like making us feel like, are we seeing this weird thing? And I remember, Anne, when you were sitting next to me watching a game and you turned to me and said, I get it. I see the officiating problem. And once you saw it, it's all you could see.
Yep. And I think and again, I say this as not a former basketball player. I stayed very far away from the sport. But it's just a huge amount of variability. So suddenly this, like who's on the court calling the game, becomes very meaningful in the outcome of the game, which degrades the quality of the experience for the players and the fans and everyone who's watching.
And so if as a league you wanted to improve the officiating, what you would do is look, well, how have other sports improved officiating? You'd look first to basketball, so that's NBA or college. And then you'd look at soccer and other sports that have officiating that matters. And what all of them have done is added transparency and accountability.
Yeah.
And so step one is to own the fact that there is an issue and address it by trying to cobble together best practices. And for sure, there's got to be reviews, just like there's reviews and statistics for players. Well, there's reviews and statistics for officials in other leagues. It's clearly time to do that in the WNBA. So that's what I would say is the first one is let's treat it, let's go learn from everyone else who's in a somewhat similar experience.
Yeah, I mean, I love your advice to start with an apology here. What's interesting to me about this whole story is none of it is unprecedented. I think we can learn from other sports. We can learn from other basketball leagues. We can learn from organizations that have lost and rebuilt trust with key stakeholders. But it does feel particularly ripe for an apology moment. And we know what a good apology looks like. And it starts with owning it, right? So there is an own it moment. We miss this, we see it now, and we are so sorry for the cost of getting this wrong to the stakeholders we care the most about, including number one players, but also fans and owners. Like everybody lost. We got it wrong, and everybody lost. Let's name it.
I believe if the league came out and did that today, the commissioner would have a chance of saving her job. Like that's how much I believe it's not too late for an apology. But without an apology, it would be very difficult for the commissioner to keep her job. Because if you don't acknowledge what everyone else is seeing with increasing clarity, it kind of doesn't matter how good you were in everything else. We just think you're out of touch.
Yeah. And what we know about a good apology, you got to own it, you got to fix it, and you got to stop it. You got to convince us that you have a good plan going forward for how you're going to fix the problem and how you're going to continue to incorporate feedback into this problem as you get there. And this doesn't seem difficult. It's just the willingness to do it.
And we know it's not difficult because we see it done in all of these other contexts. But what won't work is, trust us, we have a black box that does it. We've got this. You've lost all we've got this privileges.
Yep. Great. And who should make that apology?
The commissioner, because that's who the buck stops there.
Yeah, the person who's ultimately accountable.
Should do it.
So I want to talk about leadership broadly here and where is the opportunity and where we go from here. And we could spend this entire episode on a critique of the commissioner. But let me complicate this a little bit.
Please.
So in preparing for this episode, I spent a little bit of time learning about Cathy and learned a lot of things that I did not know that I think are going to be relevant to the advice we might give her. So she had this pretty amazing career. She spent decades at Deloitte. She became the first woman to lead Deloitte US. It's a 100,000 person organization. She clearly led it into a new era of competitiveness, was very successful. She, had some basketball in her blood. She herself played in college. Her father was drafted by the Detroit Pistons. It seems like the relationship skills that she clearly had that worked in that corporate environment did not transfer particularly cleanly into this ecosystem with a bunch of stakeholders and dynamics that were new to her. Probably, I'm guessing there. I think she, in the last few years, as she's been in her role and leading the league through COVID, and I think a professionalization push and expansion and increasing interest. I think there were clearly things that she did that were quite helpful to getting us to this moment where there's a high quality problem around how to keep the momentum going. So I want to bring some kind of can-do energy to coaching her through this moment, because this is clearly a person who, with some experience sitting at the head of the table in difficult, complex, high-pressure leadership roles, and in the past has found her way through them and through them quite successfully. But this is a moment where what got her here is not going to get her there. And where I would start with her is that this is a crisis moment. And the opportunity is going to require you to engage with urgency, curiosity, empathy around the stakeholders, and take accountability for decisions you made that have brought you to this point.
I think you said it beautifully. If I had a highlighter, what got you here won't get you there. I think the hiring of Cathy was a great decision. I think Cathy's performance was great performance in the professionalization period of it. And it's not to say that she couldn't be the one that lets it go in the explosive growth, that leads through the explosive growth, but she would have to lead differently. And there has been no evidence that she has the desire, much less the capacity, to lead differently. For example, she has never really developed relationships with players. Mm-hmm. And players are at the center of where the issues are right now. So I have no idea, but I bet she's got really good relationships with owners. I bet she has a really good relationship with the NBA, who has a partial ownership stake in the league. Like, without seeing any of that, I bet she's great at it. And I think that was what was necessary before. The bridge.
And the other stakeholder I put on the list is, I think she has succeeded in some really new and exciting media rights deals. I bet she navigated that.
Yeah, I would push back a little bit. 10 years, $2.5 billion. It is 10x more than it was before. That's a long time to lock something in. On the dawn of explosive growth, I have a feeling people are going to be very sad in like 3 years at how little and how long that is.
Great. So we'll give her, maybe not an A+, but reasonable people could disagree. Yes. Nobody is disagreeing about relationship with players, to your point.
Nobody is really
and coaches.
Yeah, the players and the coaches, which is, and coaches are closer to employees than they are to management in this league. Let's be super honest. They're the ones that get fined for saying things about officiating. She's fining players. She's fining coaches. So I think now, could she learn how to develop relationships? She seems awfully smart and has developed relationships with others. So to me, I don't see it as much of a capability issue as a desire. And she has, but it is really hard to change when you don't think you have a problem. And there isn't any evidence. We don't know what goes on behind the scenes, but there's no evidence that she thinks she has a problem. And so I have seen very few people change without acknowledging the problem.
Yeah, I think her public statement, which was received as kind of a bland and neutral document, I saw a spark. I had a spark of optimism because I think there was a newfound humility in it that I hadn't seen before, and there was not a flurry of fines.
Well, then there might be. Let me give you another data point that might add to that interesting optimism. The league put out a schedule of when they award different MVP and most valuable player and the best this, the best that. They're on October 1st, which has passed. The all-defensive team was supposed to be announced. This is a league that runs on clockwork and silence. Mm-hmm. So we're recording this on October 3rd. Still no word about it. That in and of itself is conspicuous, but one of the things might be is that she calls the players to tell them that they've gotten it. She either shows up or calls them. One of the players very likely on the all-defensive team is Napheesa Collier. So maybe this is your newfound humility or newfound trying to figure out what to do differently. And it might take more than 48 hours to figure out what to do differently.
And it should take more than 48 hours.
And it should take more than 48 hours.
So let's say, Cathy, we're part of this conversation. Frances, what coaching would you give her?
I would ask, the way I know that someone gets it is I ask them to describe the perspective of someone else in their own words. So I would ask her to articulate the player's point of view, the player's concerns, with enough vivid detail that I believed she got it. So I would, and I think that role playing, that's like the sanding that would then we could go into how to co-create the solution. But number one is I would make sure she could talk about the players at least as well as the players could talk about the players.
Okay. So let's say she's in her 48 hours of reflection and contemplation where she has gone silent. She's there.
She's done the perspective.
She is a learner. She gets it. She realizes her role in bringing us all to this moment.
Then I would come back.
And then where does she go next?
I would come back and, first of all, the most important thing to the players right now is the collective bargaining agreement.
Yep. So let's go there. You're a reformed commissioner of the WNBA now, and you are now coming back to the table after walking through the fire of one of the most important players in the league, calling you out as being a terrible leader. You've heard the critique. You've thought about it. You totally understand how she got there. And now let's go have the most important conversation
so
this league is confronting.
I would begin with the collective bargaining agreement, and I would begin with waxing poetic about the value creation and the role the players have in the value creation of the league and how it has changed dramatically in the last 24 months. So that we are in a new normal that none of us anticipated, and it is wildly exciting. And here are all of the reasons that it's because of the players. And I would say it with as much, so do the value creation and then say, and thus, we need a collective bargaining agreement that allows the players to capture as much of that value as possible. And I will be the person who is the intermediary between owners and players, by the way. That's what the commissioner's job is. I will be the person who, if it's a jump ball between owners and players, I'm on the side of players. Mm-hmm. I believe that they are the value creation engine, and I am going to gnaw off a limb to make sure that they get their fair share.
All right. So can I offer a couple observations on this? Yes. I love where you're going. I think it's now, this is a walk the talk moment. And she has this incredible opportunity because they're in the middle of this negotiation.
Yeah, that's actually, it's unbelievable that she can walk the talk in public in 72 hours. Who gets that opportunity?
It's a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
In the kind of never waste a crisis moment that this is. I, as a casual sports fan, you and I, women of a certain age, have lived through a number of breakdowns in these conversations in professional sport. I remember the baseball one vividly, which totally destroyed value for everyone. I don't know that the sport ever recovered from it.
Yeah.
There was a major hockey one in my lifetime. Can you think of others?
Yeah, and what you're referring to is when the breakdown is so much that there's a lockout.
There's a lockout, and the game stops.
Yeah.
And everybody loses.
Yes.
So if there is this gravitational pull towards these talks devolving into an unproductive place, and I think it is an extraordinary opportunity for professional sports, period, to show people how to do this in another way. And I think given that everyone's paying attention, and that the commissioner has now been humbled, and that the world is paying attention to this game for the first time, and that this is a national treasure of a league that the nation is invested in preserving, you have a theater that is built to change history that you have never had before. And so what does it look like to do something differently here?
I have goosebumps when you said that, by the way.
The predictable thing is everyone protects their interests, and we can't agree. So what does it look like to do something differently? I want Cathy to show up not just alone as a representative. I want her to show up. She and her colleagues have built this extraordinary network of equity investors. There's like Magic Johnson and Tom Brady and Sue Bird. I was looking at the list. Alex Rodriguez,
Mark
Lisa
Laurie.
Leslie, like all of these players who have been here before. Like, let's get everyone involved in showing the world a different way to get through these moments.
Yeah. And here are if I could give guiding principles, because we fall back on how complicated everything is. Here would be
So complicated.
Here would be my guiding advice. Be guided by simple, transparent, fair. Simple, transparent, fair. And if you're wondering what's fair, just look at the comps. It's like, am I being paid fairly? I look at the comps of other leagues. Don't conjure fairness on your own. Just look at the comps. And so simple, transparent, and fair. No black box. Simple, transparent, and fair. And it's really hard to get any numbers out because there isn't much.
Which is also a dumb fucking feature of all of these negotiations in all these other sports too.
Yeah.
That nobody has accurate data. Is it profitable? Is it not profitable? Is it a sleight of hand on the accounting?
And we can have our own separate thing on the red herring of profitable or not and the asset appreciation. Not even going to go there, but just to say there is a way to take all of that complexity and describe it in an elegantly straightforward, simple, transparent, and fair way. And by the way, here's like the secret. I don't even think the players are asking for that much. No. Like, I'm going to just give you an example. The players today, each team pays the players $1.5 million in total. The whole team, $1.5 million. The estimate of how much a team is worth is $300 million. They pay $1.5 million. You and I love the phrase 10x. Imagine if it 10x. It would be $15 million on an asset of $300 million. They're not even asking for that much. That's the tragedy in all of this.
And the other thing I'm stuck on is that there is this model in the NBA that is tested, well established for the sharing of so-called basketball
related revenue.
Basketball related income. So this is
Yeah.
tickets, sponsorships, like merchandise sale. We have this model in this other league, and I totally understand they're not the NBA yet in terms of profitability. We're still getting there, whatever there is, because again, we got to your point. How do you do this differently from the past, from other leagues? Like, let's open this black box so we're working with the right data.
Yeah.
So we have this framework that works. Okay, so then why don't we understand there's this debate? Is how fast are we going to get there? Fine. There's lots of precedent for contractual terms that allow for uncertainty. So let's get there over time. Let's get there at a reasonable pace. Let's hit these milestones, and then that will trigger. This is not complicated from a legal standpoint.
I'll give you an illustrative example on the fair part of it, the simple, transparent, and fair. So NBA players get paid more than WNBA players. They should. NBA players get paid every year more than they did the year before because the league is growing. If the league was shrinking, every year the NBA would be paid less than it was the year before. So it is built in as a percentage of revenue. And in fact, it's a simple, transparent, and fair number. It's 50%. So in the NBA, 50% of basketball-related revenue goes towards compensation of the players. And that's a comp. That's something that you can look at. If you look at the WNBA, first, it's hard to calculate it, but no one has estimated it to be above 10%. And the more pristine the economic excellence in it, it's closer to 7%. So
which is a number that has gone down over time, not up.
It's a number that has gone down, not up. So that we are in a single digit down, not up, compared to the NBA, who's a part owner of the league.
Yeah.
That's the part that it's not discussed in an adult to adult way. Instead, it's masked with words like, it wouldn't be sustainable for us to do that. Do you know what I want to do with when somebody says that it wouldn't be sustainable? It's like when somebody says you need more executive presence. And I want to...
Well, that word now has become
triggering. Napheesa Collier,
triggering and weaponized.
It's been, yes, like can't use that word anymore, but don't look for a new word. Instead, look for simple, transparent, and fair. I was saying to Cathy, what you should be doing in these 48 hours of private time that you have, convince yourself why 50% isn't the right number and get as close to 50% as you can. And to your point, you don't have to get there overnight. Give us a 5-year plan, how we're going to get, and nobody's going to care. This is where I think you're going to find the players so willing to be partners in the value creation and value capture plan. But what you can't do is be utterly dismissive in a complicated, not transparent, and what appears to be unfair way.
Excellent. Frances, we are close to our time on this conversation. So will you summarize what our advice to the league is?
Yeah. So my advice to the league is take a beat, listen to the chorus of comments around you, and believe them. Mm-hmm. And then think, do you want to be the one who repairs the relationship? You might not want to be, in which case, hand the job to someone else. But if you want to be the one who repairs the relationship, this is a player issue. Everyone that's arguing is arguing on behalf of players. So if you want to be the one who does it, start with an apology and then be guided by simple, transparent, and fair. But I want your next phase of leadership to become, if you were professionalizing the league in phase 1, in phase 2, it's the champion of the players. Do you want to become a commissioner that is a players champion in phase 2? Because if not you, they'll find someone else who does. And I'm not saying you don't have the capacity to do it. I'm just saying you haven't yet shown the willingness to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want the league to treat this as the crisis it is, with the very real stakes that, to its credit, it has created, which this is a league with a lot to lose right now. And I think it is an opportunity to show the entire world
how to do these things.
Because the world doesn't know. There is just a pattern of these conversations going poorly and these moments not turning, into your point, moments where relationships get repaired and emerge even stronger than where they started. So this league has a chance to show us how to do better here. And I think doing it better means doing it differently. And I want Cathy, after a moment of reflection, so I think she appropriately is being silent right now, to show up, take ownership, bring a whole bunch of people with her, signal that we are going to channel this into an amazing outcome in this agreement where players finally are feeling seen and heard. And I am finally, on behalf of this league, taking responsibility for how this conversation and relationship has broken down, in particular over the course of the last year. So here is the plan. Here's how we're going to fix the officiating and incorporate feedback
Player
going forward.
safety into it.
Player safety. And here's how we are going to get to the finish line on this agreement where everyone feels really good going forward. I want the bar to be even higher now, as opposed to, incrementally muddling our way to the finish line. I want to say, no, we're going to be wildly successful. I hear you. I get it. Finally, I get it. And I am sorry it took this long and this many swings and this many injuries to get my attention, but I am here. We're going to get there. I'm not going to try to do it alone. I'm going to bring all of my friends with me who care about a great outcome here. And we're going to get this done in the next 3 weeks. Okay, Frances, final advice to the players in this situation.
If someone comes to you as a different version of themselves, please be open to receiving them through their redemptive offering. So my advice to the players is interact with whatever version of Cathy comes forward in good faith.
I love that. Create the space for grace and redemption in this story if the league and if Cathy seeks it out.
Yes.